Hi, it's Pastor Paul L. Anderson here at the Fountain of Raleigh Fellowship, where we believe God's blessings never stop flowing. It is Fantastic Friday. We are so grateful that God does great and marvelous things in all of our lives, and how God gives us His Word that will help us, that we can know that we are rooted in Christ. Today, I invite you to look with me to that very small New Testament letter, the letter that is written to the church of Colossae. In Colossians, the 2nd chapter, we find these words. The Apostle Paul encouraged the believers to remain firmly rooted in Christ, warning them against all the practices that can lead them astray. In these verses, Paul not only affirms the sufficiency of Christ, but he also emphasized the completeness of believers in Him. Our historical context tells us that the church of Colossae was faced with changes from various philosophies and teachings that were in conflict directly with the gospel. In the region, we find out they had beliefs that were rooted in mysticism. Jewish legalism and pagan practices were very common. Some of these teachings attempted to draw believers away from their faith in Christ, leading them to embrace traditions and rituals that diminish Christ being center in their life and being the central focus of their goals. Paul writes this letter to strengthen the church, urging them not to sway by this high-sounding nonsense. Paul calls it high-sounding nonsense. We live in a world that people are playing music and they're speaking so loud that the decibels of what they say sounds just like it's a brainwashing technique. We must remind ourselves, as he reminds them, that Christ has to be supreme, and in Him is all the fullness that God dwells. It is through Christ's death, His resurrection, that believers are made complete. We are forgiven and liberated from spiritual bondage. We must remind ourselves that in our society, just like in the society of the Colossians, that we're surrounded by influences that try to pull us away from a Christ-centered life. Messages in media, social values, and even ideologies that very subtly undermines that Christ is Lord and Christ is all, suggesting we need something more to be fulfilled. Paul urges us, let all of us be rooted. Let all of us have roots that grow down into Him so that our lives are grounded firmly in Christ. We need to know that He is our rock of ages and He is the anchor for our souls. When we are in a deepened relationship with Him, it is that our spirituality allows us to discern, and it helps us to recognize and resist false teachings. Paul reminds them and reminds you and me of our completeness in Christ and how that liberates us from anything else. In this world, we often measure ourselves by our achievements, our possessions, our social status. These passages bring us to the place where we know that we need peace, the peace that we already have in Christ. We do not need to strive for worldly approval or fall into the trap of legalistic practices or prove our self-worth. His death and His resurrection canceled all of our debts, giving us the victory over sin and empowering us to walk in freedom. I'm so happy somebody wrote the song, "The old debt was settled long ago." It was at the cross that Jesus paid the price. May all of us pray, Lord, help me to stay rooted in You and grow in the fullness of Your truth. Give me discernment to recognize that which might lead me astray, and remind me daily that my victory is in You and in Your sacrifice. May my life reflect the completeness that only You can give. And then we will know we've prayed a prayer that God will honor. My brothers and sisters, I want to remind you, you are exceedingly and abundantly blessed. And God has a great blessing in store for you. We'll look forward to sharing with you again on tomorrow.
To sow a seed to the Fountain of Raleigh Fellowship, visit our newly redesigned website, thefountainofraleigh.org, and select Sow a Seed from the homepage. Also, giving has been made easier with the new Fountain of Raleigh app, available now in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Download today, select Giving from the main menu, and then follow the directions to complete your giving through Subsplash.
Thank you so very much for all of your gifts and donations that you've given to the Fountain of Raleigh Fellowship. We thank you for what you've done in the past, what you're currently doing, and what you will do in the future. Your gifts and donations helps us to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, not only locally, but throughout the world. Thank you again for your gifts, and may God continue to richly bless you. It is here at the Fountain that we believe that we are exceedingly and abundantly blessed, and may you receive those blessings that God has in store for you.